As I said, Pastor Manning, let me introduce him, is going to lead us here in a discussion of the incredible potential of getting the New Orleans City Council to adopt an ethics position. Pastor Manning, I think you all know, is both the chairperson of the Greater New Orleans Interfaith Climate Coalition. He is the moderator of Justice and Beyond. He's the facilitator for the Coalition Against Death Alley and a whole lot more. So he'll be working with Monique Harden. Monique is the brains, the initial brains who got this whole ethics standard written and defended it and got it through the Ethics Review Board. And now we really have the potential of getting it passed. And I think everybody knows Monique is a legal climate warrior who fought so hard on the gas plant all the way through the appellate process, and somebody who is highly honored by all climate advocates. So Pastor Manning, you're up.
Thank you, Peter, and good afternoon, everybody. Good to see everybody and be with you on this platform. So as Peter said, just to kind of give you a little bit of background, Monique approached myself about the Greater New Orleans Interfaith Climate Coalition, also known as the GNOICC, about ensuring and going to the Ethics Review Board about tightening the constraints that have previously been on the record and on the books with the City Council and the state in terms of financial contributions that City Council members and those who are candidates to be City Council members, those contributions that they receive from entities such as Entergy, the Sewage and Water Board, and other utilities such as Cox Cable, and tightening those constraints so that they would no longer be able to receive large donations or donations almost of any kind. And so she was able to bring that to our attention at the GNOICC, and the GNOICC was then able to go to the Ethics Review Board with a recommendation that would prohibit and would make sure or ensure with a penalty that all those running for office would disclose whether or not they're receiving contributions from those entities, and if indeed, in fact, they are, they would be given 2 weeks to discontinue those contributions. And this is absolutely necessary. We've seen right now that our regulatory body, the City Council, is often being regulated by Entergy and other companies such as those and Sewage and Water Board, and it is to the detriment of everyday citizens and ratepayers and those who are most vulnerable. And so right now, I believe that it is our duty to demand that the Ethics Review Board would, they've done their job already. They have sent it on to the City Council. It is now the job of the City Council to go forward with, and I want to be very careful right now. We've just spoken with Councilman Kristen Palmer last week about her thoughts on this recommendation by the Ethics Review Board. And her thought is that there would be a resolution that would be proposed by the City Council. However, it does not need to be a resolution, because the resolution has not enough heft and not enough gravitas, if you will, that it needs to have in order for this to be enforceable. It needs to be an ordinance. It needs to be a policy change so that those who sit on City Council will no longer be able to be in the pocket of corporations like Entergy. And that is absolutely necessary at this moment. So I'm going to let Monique, are you prepared to offer some thoughts on it as well too? I don't know
Yes,
if
I
you're
am.
right. Please do. Please do it. And
Okay.
just a word of thank you to Monique and all of her hard work and those members of the Greater New Orleans Interfaith Climate Coalition, such as Jonathan Leo, that worked very hard to move this through the Ethics Review Board to City Council.
Yes, and I just want to thank Greater New Orleans Interfaith Climate Coalition for holding this discussion today and inviting me to be a part of it. And I want to walk you through some of the details leading up to the proposed legislation for the city of New Orleans and what that legislation says. So I just want to make sure that everybody's informed about the history and what we're aiming for in terms of changing city law. Okay, I'm going to share this presentation. If I can do that. Okay. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So, some of the members of Greater New Orleans Interfaith Climate Coalition might remember this presentation has been updated for the talk we're having today. But looking at it from the standpoint of strengthening ethics in the city of New Orleans and a way forward on renewable energy and equitable climate solutions, as well as other policies that are important for improving the lives of people in the city. And this is really grounded in a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King that is one of my favorites. And he said that it may be true that the law cannot change the heart, but it can restrain the heartless. And that's our mission, is to restrain the heartless with this ethics proposal. So we start from the baseline that we currently have no law in the city of New Orleans prohibiting campaign contributions to city council members, and that council members can, if they wanted to, receive money from companies like Entergy, Cox Communications that they regulate. They can also receive money from companies that are awarded contracts. And when you think about what that takes us in terms of money as influence, it brings us back to the situation we were facing when we were fighting the gas plant, where Entergy was able to push through for decades this relationship with the city council over various elections of having quote unquote a partnership. And that's code for what we mean as regulatory capture, meaning that the regulator is really bound by the regulated, and it's not the other way around. And so when you see those words coming from Entergy about having a partnership or wanting a partnership or wanting to, even after Ida, when they were threatening to leave, they were saying, oh, it looks like our partnership is now called into question with the city council. That's code for being able to have things done the way they want and not really be obligated and be held to account as a regulated company. And at the time that we were proposing this change around an ethics standard, it was right after we were able to, the Energy Future New Orleans Coalition, all the members were able to get the city council to establish the first renewable clean portfolio standard in the southeast region of the United States. And this is requiring that energy, electricity, supplied by Entergy comes from renewable sources, with the goal of reaching by the year 2050 that all sources of electricity are carbon free. So no oil, no gas, no coal. And instead we're looking at solar, a mix, a combination of solar, wind, renewable energy sources with nuclear energy. So how could we ensure implementation when over that time period, it's really vulnerable to more influence by Entergy to push back against the gains that we made earlier this year? And that's really, I think, been really more laid bare in terms of what's at stake in what we endured with Hurricane Ida that, took the lives of residents here in the city because of Entergy's power failure and setting up a very fragile and neglected energy grid. So here's the action timeline this year. On June 25th, Greater New Orleans Interfaith Climate Coalition um, submitted to the Ethics Review Board a proposal for changing the ethics code, which is part of our city law, our City of New Orleans ordinance, that would prohibit council members and candidates from accepting money from Entergy and other regulated and contracted companies. This proposal was supported by my organization, Deep South Center for Environmental Justice, the Alliance for Affordable Energy, and Energy Future New Orleans. On August 9th, the Ethics Review Board held a second meeting on the proposed ethics change to city law, and they voted unanimously to adopt it and pass it on. Now, this is a very unique role that the Ethics Review Board has under our City of New Orleans Home Rule Charter, which is to put to the City Council various changes to the ethics code. And I think this is probably the first time that any ethics review board has done this. And they did it with this particular change that I'm going to present to you in just in the next slide. And then after following their vote to pass the GNOICCC ethics change to the city council, they actually acted on that with a letter transmitting the proposed change to Councilmember Helena Moreno, who's president of the city council, and the clerk who records documents prepared and sent to the city council. So what does the ethics change provide? It's in two parts. The first part says that no city council member or candidate seeking, let me see if I can minimize this window. Oops, go back. Seeking the office of city council shall accept or otherwise receive a campaign contribution or any financial benefit of any value from Entergy, Cox Communications, or other entity that provides a utility, cable, telecommunications, or technology service that's regulated by the city council. They also can't receive campaign contributions or financial benefits from any political action committee, director, or executive staff person of a corporation or entity regulated by the city council that could be reimbursed by the regulated company or is otherwise serving as a conduit that is really from the regulated company, but it's coming through these various individuals. The same thing goes for any person, firm, or entity with a professional services contract awarded by the city council. And that also applies in the last part to those folks in that executive capacity with contracts to serve the New Orleans Sewage and Water Board. The last part of the proposed ordinance sets out that within 30 days of a qualifying deadline for elections to the city council, that there should be a requirement that each candidate submits to the Ethics Review Board as well as the City Law Department an affidavit that either affirms or denies the following. A, that acceptance of compensation or financial benefit of any value from any regulated entity by the City Council or contracted to provide a service to the City Council in the last 5 years, and or anytime they may have served on the board of a corporation or entity that is either regulated by the City Council or contracted to provide a service to the City Council. So keep in mind that this was submitted to the City Council on August 24th. 5 days later, there was Hurricane Ida. But the City Council should be hearing, and we're hoping that you will help join us in taking the lead and calling on the City Council to move forward on making this an ordinance and passing it into law. Any questions?
Yeah, maybe for a starter, Monique and Pastor Manning, we've got representatives here of the Louisiana Bucket Brigade, 350, Climate Reality, Alliance for Affordable Energy, FNO, No Waste, Louisiana, Healthy Golf, probably others. What would you want all those organizations to do to move this through the City Council?
it would be very easy lifting to send letters and make phone calls and ask for meetings. And we can also do that in coordination. So if folks want a deeper background to get more informed about this, I'm here to help. Other folks are here to help who've been part of this effort. But this is the city council needs to hear from more people in the city, especially organizations where there's constituencies and memberships, to call on them to take action on the ethics review board's recommendation.
Absolutely. I think, as much as we can do, in fact, Kristen Palmer, Councilwoman Palmer did ask in a meeting that we had with her a couple of weeks ago, are we building, doing our due diligence and making sure that each of you knows about this and rallying you to speak on it. So I think that is very appropriate that you all would write letters urging them and demanding that they take this up as soon as possible. We all know about Ida, but also to think that there are council members that do not want to move this along. So they're shuffling their feet, and this needs to be brought up before the council. As Monique said, we can coordinate, get you the information that you may need to get to them. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, I'd like to hear some other people's comments. Claire, what could the Bucket Brigade do, for example? Would this be within their scope to support this? And
I believe so. I can't speak for our president, Ann, but I believe so. We've always been supportive of FNO's efforts in behalf of clean energy, and I imagine that we will do the same. And I'll check with Ann. We have a phone call coming up, and I'll get back with Monique and Pastor Manning and any other appropriate people.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought it up. Thank you.
Yeah. And Pastor and Monique, how do you think FNO and GNOICC should coordinate to get us all informed and set up some kind of system so we're following up?
I don't know. Any recommendations on that? I think, to continue to have maybe another meeting like this, or a smaller group meeting. I know this meeting is going to cover other issues, but we'll have another meeting to assemble people who are interested in making sure that we get people to City Council to speak on it and mobilize folks to contact council members as well.
Great. And Glenn has his hand up, and then Jane.
This really needs to be done on a statewide basis, because this is not just energy. This is the essence of good government and avoidance of corruption. If you don't have this type of rule in general, we will have the reputation of Louisiana continued as one of the most corrupt states in the country, going all the way back to Huey Long. But we need to clean up, and that should be a goal throughout the state.
And Jane.
Yeah, I'm seeing a couple. So I agree with what Glenn just said. I think this is something we have to be thinking about statewide, and also because New Orleans is in the unique position of actually having the city council oversee Entergy directly. I think this is a good sort of model place to start, as we also think, as Logan said in the chat, about the Public Service Commission and how we take this on at a statewide level, because I think when it comes to at least ethics and energy, it's going to be the PSC and not the legislature that we have to be looking at, or we have to be looking at both of them. And I'm also seeing the parallels around, some of y'all may have been following this, the battle around ethics that happened with the Baton Rouge Water Board at the legislature this session, where the legislature actually passed an ethics standard that was not ethical for the members of the Baton Rouge Water Board. And the governor vetoed it, from my memory, because of how vague the wording in the bill was, and also because it basically would allow someone who was working for the regulated entity to work for its regulator. And of course, that is one of the key problems that we're facing right now. And so, and one of the things that I think we need to be preventing here. So as I'm thinking of, first of all, that means that the legislature has experience recently talking about these kinds of ethical standards at the state level. It also means that the governor's office has experience talking about these kinds of ethical standards at the state level. So if we're talking about it at that level, I think it's important, as we move beyond New Orleans. But I'm fully ready to support this. I'm also seeing, as we think about what is the legislative or regulatory, whether that's city or state level win, that we are going to be looking at and trying to take on, because we are about to have literally the fight of our lives around the legislature and the Public Service Commission over the next 2 to 3 years. I think one of the wins that we're going to end up taking on is around like solar, the way that the state electrifies and the way we move toward renewable energy. And I think that this ethical standard is like a really, I don't want to say easy, because it's not easy, but it seems it's a very obvious place for us to be flexing a muscle and really organizing people around talking about energy policy. And so I'm actually really glad that we are doing this, and appreciate y'all very much.
Thank you, Jade. Andy, then Robert.
All right, I had a pop-up. Yes to everything that Jane just said. I think like the inside-outside strategy is crucial in this, that we have our insider talks and our personal visits and our advocacy group visits with legislators and with, the city council and everybody who's in charge on this. But we should also do some phone banking to get a broad coalition together and get like the broad public behind this, because anti-corruption stuff is very popular with the broad public. And I think that there's a lot of value in messaging around that.
Yeah, it really is hard to argue about why a city council person, should be taking gifts from somebody I have responsibility for. It's doesn't make for a good public argument. Robert.
Yes, that bill that Jane referred to, I read the text. It actually said, notwithstanding the rules of the ethics law. It said notwithstanding, so the legislators knew that they were violating the law. I had a friend in the Senate. He is now deceased, James Fontenot of Abbeville. He used to tell me that he didn't feel it was right even to accept a crate of oranges from Plaquemine Parish. During the Deepwater Horizon, there was a senator in Slidell that tried to get Corexit banned in state waters. I was in the Senate building when the vote was taken. There were about 5 senators who voted to outlaw a known carcinogen and poison from state waters. The others did not. As I was leaving the Senate balcony, I saw people in the lobby congratulating themselves, high fives. I thought all the senators had come out, but no, I looked back in the chamber. The senators were still there. Those were lobbyists congratulating themselves on having purchased the vote of the Senate. I totally agree with Glenn. This has got to be a statewide matter. The petroleum industry is to the legislature what Entergy is to the council. It's going to be a tough battle. David and Goliath looks easy compared to this, but I think what you all have done so far is really clear. And one last thing, we say GNOICC, that means we have church congregations. And I can't think of anything more appropriate for congregations than to support moral issues like this. So I think we can all speak to our congregations and our friends about it. Thank you for doing this, Monique.
Thank you, Robert. And so could I just suggest, I think, as I said, we have maybe 8, maybe 10 organizations represented here. Could I have a thumbs up or a wave or something if you will commit to take this back to your organization and educate them and get them on board, so we can all be responsive together as GNOICC, FNO, and the Alliance set direction and provide some direction for us. Could I have a wave, a thumbs up, anything? Okay, it looks like unanimous. Oh,